remember rock and roll radio? Ramones do. Hello everyone, welcome to Discover This. Did you know that the disc jockey Alan Freed, who popularized the term rock and roll, did you know that he lived and died in Palm Springs? So Alan Freed got interested in radio while attending Ohio State. And then during World War II, he was a DJ on Armed Forces radio. And after the war, he ended up working at a few radio stations in Ohio and Pennsylvania. And then in the early 50s, Alan Freed popularized the term rock and roll, which had been around for a few years but was rarely used and was pretty obscure. But Freed's real claim to fame was that he bridged the gap of segregation by playing black artists as opposed to white artists covering black artists' songs. And he did that on his radio program and by promoting concerts that were attended by racially mixed audiences. He was one of the organizers of the March 21st, 1952 Cleveland Arena concert called the Moondog Coronation Ball, which is considered to be the first major rock and roll concert. So, after doing his thing in Cleveland for a while, Freed moved to New York and worked at various radio stations there and kept promoting concerts. Then in 1959, Alan Freed was fired from a New York radio station for refusing to sign a form for the FCC saying he never accepted Payola, which is basically taking money from the record companies for playing certain records. So in 1960, Payola was made illegal and Alan Freed was charged with multiple counts of commercial bribery, which in other words was Payola. Because of this, Freed couldn't get hired by any prestigious radio stations in the US. And in 1960 he moved to LA and started working for a station in Santa Monica. He also tried promoting some concerts at the Hollywood Bowl. In 1962, Alan Freed moved to Miami and his alcohol intake started to increase significantly. And he was only in Miami for about 2 months. So then in 1964, Alan Freed got indicted for tax evasion based on the Payola money that he accepted. And also in 1964, he moved back to the West Coast and worked for a very short time at a radio station in Long Beach. After that, well, that didn't work out. So after that, he moved with his third wife to Palm Springs. And they moved to a house here on East Desert Holly Circle in the Racket Club neighborhood. Now, Freed was pretty much an alcoholic and broke by this point in his life. So they rented a house here on this street, and he seemed to enjoy his time here in Palm Springs. But again, he couldn't get a job doing what he loved to do. And the house they rented is straight ahead here at 309 East Desert Holly Circle. And the house really hasn't changed too much over the years. You know, the paint job, obviously, and they put up those metal screens in the front. There's a picture of Alan Freed on the roof of this house, although it's on the back side. He's overlooking the backyard. But this was the house that Alan Freed lived in when he was in Palm Springs. And again, he enjoyed his time out here. He had some friends out here and he stayed at their house. Not stayed, but he'd go visit. And there's a picture here of him by the pool at their house here in Palm Springs. Now, on January 15th, 1965, Alan Freed checked himself into Desert Hospital. So Alan Freed wasn't feeling well, so he checked himself into a desert hospital, which back in January of 1965 was here at 1151 North Via Marileste. Now, the hospital, the main entrance to the hospital is now on Indian Canyon, and that's how you enter. But when Alan Freed checked himself in, he checked himself into this side here, which was the entrance at the time. So the doctors ended up doing some tests and things like that. Ran a bunch of things, but you know, he being an alcoholic and whatnot, he was in kind of bad shape. And after checking himself in on January 15th, he ended up dying on January 20th here at this hospital. So after Alan Freed died at the hospital, his body was brought here to Palm Springs Mortuary at 4707 East Sunny Dunes in Palm Springs. And this is where his autopsy was done on January 21st, 1965. And that autopsy showed that Alan Freed died from cirrhosis of the liver and uremia. And that's what shows on his death certificate. Now on January 22nd, 1965, Alan Freed's body was sent to Montecito Memorial Park in San Bernardino for cremation. So Alan Freed is buried at Lakeview Cemetery in Cleveland, Ohio. And he's been, over the years, he's been immortalized in songs like Cleveland Rocks by Ian Hunter, and also songs by Ramones, Public Enemy, Neil Young, Mark Bolan, Neil Diamond, among others. And in 1986, Alan Freed was part of the first group inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. And in 1988, he was inducted into the National Radio Hall of Fame. In 1991, he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And in 2017, he was inducted into the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame. So besides all his legal issues, Alan Freed made some major contributions to the world of rock and roll, not the least of which is bringing racially mixed audiences together for the enjoyment of music. But we're still using the term rock and roll today, all the time. So I thank you for watching this. Please consider subscribing to the channel, and we will see you next time on Discover This.